Pirates of the Caribbean was a surprise for everyone in 2003. It was well rated by critics, and audiences fell in love with these characters. It was a massive success. These movies are regarded as classics by many people, the first couple of movies anyway. And these movies were a part of a lot of people's childhood. To me, these movies growing up were very much my Star Wars. I had a lot of the toys and I collected a lot of the merch as a teenager. I have done a couple of videos on those Zizzle Pirates of the Caribbean figures, which were essentially more so the main line, and these would have been intended for kids rather than adult collectors. Those figures are actually really good for what they were, and I actually managed to collect pretty much all of them as a kid. Now, to be fully open here, I've never really been keen on the idea of reviewing action figures on this channel. This video series is just going to be a brief showcase of the ones that I have, not necessarily like a full-fledged detailed review like a few other YouTube channels. This is just stuff that I casually collect when I can find it. It's really nothing more than a hobby. There's definitely some dedicated Star Wars collectors out there that want to collect every single action figure in existence. I definitely own more than the average person when it comes to Pirates of the Caribbean merchandise, but I'm not as extreme as some of those other collectors out there. But really, what encouraged me to want to even do this series is really just going on the internet and being rather surprised with how underrated a lot of the Pirates of the Caribbean merchandise and even just the Pirates of the Caribbean fan base in general is, just on communities and just internet forums. And I'm not saying that there aren't Pirates of the Caribbean fans out there. There's clearly, it's one of the most successful franchises in cinema history. But there just aren't that many videos that showcase any of the Pirates of the Caribbean merchandise or action figures, at least in the last 10 years. But as I said, this is content that clearly there is a fan base for, because most notably my Zizzle Pirates of the Caribbean videos were getting above average views for my relatively small channel. So the next couple of weeks, I'm just gonna be doing some shorter videos, just showcasing the NECA Pirates of the Caribbean toy line. I might do a few of the Zizzle ones. I would like to continue that because, well, I do actually have a soft spot for a lot of those action figures. But for now, I'm going to showcase the NECA Pirates of the Caribbean figures. And this is a line of action figures that a lot of people might have forgotten about. These are actually a little different for me compared to the Zizzle ones because I actually didn't have any of these growing up. I was able to get a few of those on Stranger Tide's 8-inch figures from like way back in 2011, which those are interesting to say the least. I might even do a video on them in the future. We'll see. Whatever I have motivation for. But these NECA Pirates of the Caribbean figures, these were intended for adult collectors. And it's only been the past couple of years that I've been able to get most of them. And I was able to get them through eBay searches or just thrift store hunting, whenever I could find them. I still have to get Clanker from Dead Man's Chest. There is Calypso from At World's End. A lot of these figures are actually really hard to track down. And, most of them, you're going to get them out of the box. It's very hard to find these figures where they're mint. I do happen to have a few of them in the box, and I do not plan on opening them. There's definitely been figures in the past that I have opened just because I do have a lot of Pirates of the Caribbean figures already out of the box, and I think that they just display better that way. But there's definitely a few of these that just go for very high value on eBay or just anywhere else on the internet that you can sell these. But I think for this series, the best way to start out with the NECA Pirates of the Caribbean figures is to just start out with the first wave of Pirates of the Caribbean action figures. And this was rather small. You could tell that NECA was still testing the water because Pirates of the Caribbean action figures were definitely in high demand. Jack Sparrow was the best-selling Halloween costume in 2003. So it just makes sense to make action figures. So we just got 4 figures, and this would have been 1 year after Curse of the Black Pearl. So this is in 2004, and they were already there was already circulation for Dead Man's Chest. That film was already in production, and as a few of you might know, and for those who don't, At World's End and Dead Man's Chest, Pirates 2 and 3, they were filmed consecutively. They were filmed back to back. So we also had a few of the At World's End figures that were in development. But this was a very early time for NECA, about 1 year after the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, as I said. So this would have been 21 years ago, which is pretty hard to believe. These hold up remarkably well, in my opinion. First off, we're going to take a look at Captain Jack Sparrow, the Captain Jack Sparrow figure. This was, of course, once again, a very high-demand figure. Comes to no surprise. He's always been the best-selling action figure in any Pirates of the Caribbean line. Now, I'm not saying that these other figures aren't definitely as, they're not just as fun, but Jack Sparrow, he did this figure specifically, this mold, this sculpt. He would stay relatively unchanged until about At World's End. They would change the mold in 2007 and repurpose it. There would be a few changes for the Dead Man's Chest version of this figure, because he does, in fact, look a little different in the sequels. A lot of people don't notice it, but there are definitely some differences with his outfit and just his overall look and pretty much all of the Pirates of the Caribbean sequels, but it's not too much of a change. But this was the first figure. This is the first Jack Sparrow figure ever made, and yeah, for an older NECA figure of Johnny Depp, who is very hard to capture. It's very hard to capture his likeness in action figure form. I could be incorrect, but I think the very first Johnny Depp action figure that we got was in the McFarlane Sleepy Hollow toy line, which is another very underrated line. Definitely pick those up if you can see them, if you're just a horror fan in general. So some of those Sleepy Hollow figures, they just look really cool right next to some of the newer NECA monsters. I'm definitely lucky to pick up a few of them. But yeah, the detail all over this Jack Sparrow figure is definitely impressive for the time. I do think his legs are a little bit too long, or his arms are a little bit too short, whichever one you want. Our articulation is it's definitely terrible. It's terrible with all these figures. If you get one, don't expect anything other than a statue. Some of them, if they do have articulation, it's just in an awkward place. If you move the joint, it just messes up the entire sculpt. It just looks rather off. You do have the basic wrist and arm articulation, and you can move the head and, of course, the ankles. For his accessories, you do get a bottle of rum, and you get his pistol, his cutlass, his iconic hat, everything you expect with a Captain Jack Sparrow figure. His hat can fit on his head pretty well. It doesn't like pop off really easily like the Zizzle Captain Jack Sparrow figure, but this hat isn't accurate, and there's very few figures where it is. His hat is always either way too big or way too small. This one's definitely way too small, and it's a shame because this hat would pretty much make an appearance with every single version of the NECA Captain Jack Sparrow until At World's End in 2007. So, yeah, we're pretty much stuck with this hat. As for the likeness, as I said, it gets the point across. Johnny Depp's a very hard person to capture the likeness in action figure form. Honestly, it's a little uncanny. It's a little creepy with that smile. I'm not the biggest fan of it. If you're like me and you don't like this, there is actually another variant of this figure, which I do happen to own, and that creepy expression isn't present. And I'll go ahead and take advantage of this and just show off the carded figure. And this is the standard for pretty much all the Curse of the Black Pearl figures. The box art pretty much doesn't change. The only thing that changes after this wave is the trivia for each one of the characters. This isn't present in Wave 2 or Wave 3. It's only for these first 4 Pirates of the Caribbean figures. The next figure in this wave is Will Turner, and this figure is based off of the look that he had at the end of the Curse of the Black Pearl. So you get that hat with, this figure actually has a real feather, and if you do happen to pick this figure up, I do have to give a word of caution, because this feather, I'm not sure if it's just age or if it's the glue, the type of glue that they used, but the feather will snap off really easily. Now, this figure does actually have more articulation points than Jack Sparrow, but I'm not going to move him just because I've had other NECA Pirates of the Caribbean figures and their joints, if the articulation is present at all, again, these are mostly statues, they just snap really, really easily. It's most likely an age thing, but you can move his arms, you can move his wrists, but it's really, really stiff, and I just feel like if I apply any more pressure than I already am, it's just going to snap off. Now, this figure does have a really cool feature. He actually does have an alternate look. You do get this second head, which looks considerably better and more like Orlando Bloom than this other head. I don't think this head looks anything like him. But I've tried a little bit just to get this head off, and it's not going anywhere. It's staying on, and I don't want to snap his neck. So I was actually able to acquire another Will Turner figure, and I had the bright idea that maybe I would just do a little custom, and honestly like it a lot more than the actual figure that we got. So he only has one scabbard. I gave him one of the extra swords that the Dead Man's Chest Will Turner comes with, because the Dead Man's Chest version of Will Turner comes with 3 swords for whatever reason. And I mean, I guess it makes sense because he lost like every sword that he had in that movie. But yeah, he has his axe. There isn't a hat. He has that second head on. And this, in my opinion, is the best NECA Will Turner. The next figure in this wave is Captain Barbossa, and just like Will Turner, he has much better articulation present compared to Jack Sparrow. And this one, I can actually get his arms and legs to move. They actually move pretty well. You do get a couple of accessories. You do get his pistol. You do get a sword, which is honestly just a little bit too long in my opinion, especially compared to Jack Sparrow's sword. It's just really, really long. You do get that real feather on his hat. Everything is really, really detailed. I will say this, there is a, just like Jack Sparrow, there is a variant of this figure where he isn't smiling, and that's the Wave 3 version of this figure. And I think I like that head just a lot more. It's not like creepy per se, like the Jack Sparrow figure, because this figure's likeness to Jeffrey Rush is actually really good. This looks just like him. I just think the frown looks a little bit more natural, and it's less awkward. Unfortunately, this is an aspect of getting used figures. He does come with a small dagger that he used in the ritual with Elizabeth Swann. And he also comes with a little monkey, and there's actually a little peg hole for it to go on his shoulder. And I don't have that, since this is a used figure, those accessories weren't present. I do actually have the Dead Man's Chest version of this character, and it's mint in the box. So there's the monkey, there's the knife. It's the exact same mold for the Curse of the Black Pearl Barbossa. The only difference is it's just different packaging. He does come with a different base. Overall, this is probably a top 5 NECA figure for me. There's really no complaints about it, and it's one of the few Pirates of the Caribbean NECA figures where I can say that the articulation is actually pretty decent. The final figure in this wave is Cursed Pirate, and I don't think that this is based off of any specific character in the movie. I know that there is some concept art, and it does look a little bit similar to that, but it's just a cursed pirate, the Aztec curse. He has that eye patch. Probably one of the most detailed NECA Pirates of the Caribbean figures in this line. The only figures that really rival it, it's Davy Jones's crew, and that really comes to no surprise. But one of my favorite figures, I do have to communicate this, very, very fragile figure. I can't even bend his arms. I feel like they're going to snap. Honestly, if you do get this figure and you're lucky to get him in the box, then leave him in the box. I've already had a leg break off. But he does come with some pretty cool accessories. Again, you got to be very, very delicate putting it in his hands because I feel like his fingers could break off. I think it's just, especially age or whatever kind of plastic they used, it's just very, very brittle. Doesn't get more classic Pirates of the Caribbean than that Aztec curse. There is actually another cursed pirate in this line for Wave 3, and I do actually own that figure, and I can actually pose him around a little bit. I don't know if they changed the material of plastic, but this one overall is way stronger. They look fantastic next to each other. Honestly, if you're going to buy one, then you got to buy the other. Now, it is very obvious that they have the same body. The only thing different with these figures is that they have a different head, but they have the same sword. The axe that this cursed pirate has It's the same axe that Will Turner has. Just a lot of recycled parts. And it's not the first time NECA's done something like that, you know. And honestly, for a first wave of Pirates of the Caribbean figures, these are actually pretty good in the context of 2004. Definitely haven't aged the best. I do think it's a shame that a lot of people don't even know about these, you know, a lot of people who collect action figures these days. But I think a few of them are definitely worth picking up. Definitely a shame that they didn't include Elizabeth in this wave. You know, the Cursed Pirate's definitely cool, but he's not even based on any of the characters that are in the movie. It's, again, just based off of that concept art. If you want to get these figures, they're honestly pretty easy to find. Captain Barbossa can be a pain at times, but this Jack Sparrow, very, very common. Comes to no surprise. He's the best-selling character in the franchise, so he's pretty easy to track down. Both versions, the alternate face, frowning expression, he's pretty easy to find. So this definitely isn't the best of the NECA Pirates of the Caribbean line. This isn't the best that it has to offer, but it is Pirates of the Caribbean history. These are the very first Pirates of the Caribbean action figures. They might not be super rare or anything, but definitely deserve a mention of some kind. Definitely, you know, deserve a showcase.